Hi, welcome to today's episode of Live Healthy Now. I'm joined today by the lovely guest, Laura Pearman, who is a creative entrepreneur supporting entrepreneurs globally to build authority. And Laura has a great story to share, which are the kind of conversations I love to have on the podcast. So we're going to dig into Laura's story and unwrap why, she found that building really strong foundations for your health are key to living optimally rather than just surviving. So Laura loved to live life fast. I think go at full steam ahead was probably your motto, and you discovered the hard way how that's not necessarily the right way to live a fulfilled, happy life. So I look forward to joining, having you on the podcast and unwrapping your story. So welcome, Laura.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited about having this chat and reaching your listeners as well, Nicola.
Yeah, me too. So to get started, I just want to find out a little bit about how you take care of yourself by asking you what your most impactful healthy habit is.
Right now, I'm actually getting quite into doing intermittent fasting, which I would never prior to this have said I'm that type of person. I'm so not. Like, I love to eat around the clock. But I heard Dr. Mindy Peltz on another podcast and was really intrigued about what she said about how if you fast like a girl, so according to your cycle, it can really help you to optimize things like clarity of thought, quality of sleep, and overall energy levels. And I knew I needed all of those three things. I'm about 75% the way through the book, and I'm on my second month of going with intermittent fasting. And so far, I'm absolutely loving it.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I'm a fan of Mindy Peltz as well, and I've got a book. I started to do time, I'm more, I would say, time restricted eating. I refer to it as, but they're pretty similar. And I started at the beginning of this year, and I actually felt a lot better for doing it. But then when I came across Mindy, I realised that I was probably going at it too hard. And
Yeah.
as you say, you need to be more considerate of your cycle and bringing that in. So that's really interesting to take that slightly different approach, isn't it? And what has kind of been the best output of you doing it for the past couple of months?
Absolute, like, laser focus like I've never had before. Like, you get past that initial thing of thinking, "I'm really hangry," and then it's like, "Oh," and you can just think of things really, like, straightforward. There's no jumbling about in your brain, which I have all the time as a creative, and I
Mhm.
can just focus in and get something done. But then the other side is the insomnia factor. Like, I often struggle to get to sleep. I struggle to have a high quality sleep. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just because I'm giving my system time to fully reset, like from a gut point of view, it's really helping my quality of sleep. Like, I'm always chasing the Fitbit score of what your sleep is, and I'm starting to rack up some really good quality numbers. So I think it's part of, like, it's holistic, it's part of everything, right? You probably couldn't have clear thoughts if you didn't have good sleep. And then it goes back round again. You probably can't have good sleep, or I can't have good sleep without bearing in mind that, like, fasting window and eating window. So I feel like I've unlocked something there.
Yeah, I think I feel the same. And, I know this can be quite a sensitive subject area for some people. And there's lots of different points of views around intermittent fasting. And we don't want to get into all of that in this episode. But
I don't
yeah, I
mind.
think we're,
Let's
we're
do
not talking,
it.
yeah,
Maybe that's another
we're
one.
not talking about starving yourself. Certainly not. It's,
No,
it's,
absolutely
it's
not.
something that
No.
does have, yeah, lots of health benefits. And, the things that happen when we give our digestive system a rest are where the power comes from. So this, for me, definitely wasn't about weight loss. It was about a
No.
lifestyle, and that, as you say, that holistic approach to your health,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And if you have the weight loss,
Good.
it's like a nice extra little afterthought bonus, you know? And that's the way
Yeah.
I look at it anyway.
Yeah, and I know lots of people do go about it for weight loss, and certainly for me, I'm managing my weight, but it wasn't started from that place of, oh, I'm going to
Yeah.
cut out a meal every day and lose weight and starve myself. It's much more empowering than that, as you say, which is fantastic. And I think for women especially, as we reach that perimenopause stage of life, having at least a 12-hour window of not eating is really important because of
Yeah.
what we need to support our hormonal balance with. So yeah, brilliant that you're getting into that. And I can pop a link to Mindy Peltz in the show notes as well, to her book Fast Like a Girl, if anyone wants to find out more. And you can always shout out to Laura or I. So that's
Yeah, I'll
brilliant.
talk
Thanks
to
for
anyone
sharing
about
that.
it, like in full deep. I might be off it in a few months. I don't know, but yeah, I'm up for talking to it about it, like talking about it with anyone.
Oh, fabulous. So let's start with your story right at the beginning. As I said, you were living life very fast, and to you, that was what life was about. That's how you were going to make the most of it and be happy. So tell me where you were and what was going on, and then what came about because of
So I
that.
think probably before we get into like the business story, which we will fast forward to, it's important to say I'm an older sibling, so I am naturally an overachiever. A lot of people think that I'm like Monica and Friends, like, you know, I was the annoying kid, like Miss, I've got the answer. Like if there's a gold star in it, I'll pretty much do anything. That is like my makeup as a woman. So being the overachieving older sibling who, you know, wants to be perfect all the time and do everything better than everyone else, you can imagine that entrepreneurship was a really good fit for me. I found that working in a corporate environment, in lots of different guises, I've had 39 different jobs before I started my entrepreneurship journey, or before
Wow.
the age of 30 as well. I just got so annoyed by like middle managers telling us that my suggestion of doing it better, faster, cheaper was not the way that it was done. So that was another big push for me to go like, right, well, I'm just going to do it myself. So I had all these different layers of pressure on us when I went about into getting to my entrepreneurial start. So I think there was a lot of that residual stuff before I even began. Like it is really common when you start a business, you know this as well, Nicola, you see all of those horrific statistics, like over 50% of businesses will fail in the first year. You know, even more are going to be done and dusted by year 3 or year 5 of trading. So that was very present in my mind. And like my competitive nature was like, well, I'll be damned if that's going to be me. So I kind of set up this bricks and mortar photographer studio in 2012, and I went full pedal to the metal, like balls deep to the wall with what I was going to do. And I was like, I'm just going to take photos of anyone as long as I can make money. And that's how I'll make the business work. And I'll just work like 16 hours a day. And that's just what it's going to be because I'm not going to be one of those statistics. And sure enough, I got burnt out pretty quickly. Like, so the way that burnout looks like to me is it's always something to do with like throat chakra and chest. So first thing that usually happens with me is I'll get a sore throat. But within the first 12 months of trading, I can remember doing like 3 or 4 photo shoots with laryngitis, so without a voice, with a chest infection and tonsillitis at the same time. I was like, no, it's fine. I'm going to power through. I'm not going to be one of those statistics. Got over that, and then ended up moving a studio further out of town to save some overheads, and started to niche down my business because I realized offering anyone like 15 different photographic services actually wasn't very sustainable. And I should have known better because I have a marketing degree, but that's what I'd done. So I started niching things down. I think I got a part-time job at that point to try and cover like life overheads as well as business. And then I burnt out again very seriously. But that was a little bit more insidious that time. I started feeling like I was seeing flashes of light, which is really common when you're a photographer. That's the environment you're in all the time when you're in a studio situation. And I just didn't pay any attention to it. And one day I was like, I wonder if it's me eyes. Like I need to get more glasses, like my glasses changed. And randomly eventually got my ass into an optician's. And the optician went really dour and serious with me. Now I'm really open. You can probably tell that about me already, but I'm really inappropriate in medical situations. I think it's just like my naughty, rebellious streak. So I always make like inappropriate jokes and I try and make the doctor laugh, which is not what I'm the patient. But so I kind of looked at her and I went, "Oh, is this the point where you tell us I've got a brain tumor?" And she like looked and all the blood like drained out her face and she said, "I'm not really allowed to say that, but I want you to leave this appointment and go to the A&E infirmary at the Queen Victoria Hospital as soon as you can, the RVI, which is a big eye hospital, if you know that, in Newcastle." So I was like, what do you mean? Like, what's going on? She was like, "I just need you to go there. I can't tell you anything. Let's just put a pin in this eye appointment and go to the hospital." So I like randomly went over across town into the hospital, waited, and then they were like, it all got real serious real fast. It was like, "Right, you need to have a CT scan. That'll be happening on Thursday. Then you're going to come back and have an MRI." And I was like, "What?" Like, but no one would tell us like what was going on. So I was like, I've legit got something serious going on here. And maybe it's a brain tumor. So I went through this whole rigmarole. And it turns out I've got a condition called IIH, which is idiopathic intracranial hypertension. And what that means is but your body creates too much spinal fluid, which puts a lot of pressure in your spine, in your back, in your body. But then it starts to push on the back of your eyes. So when you're an optician looking at a pair of eyes, it can look like there's a mass on the back of your eyes. For me, thank God, it was just spinal fluid, which could be dealt with, but they didn't know that in the opticians. So I ended up having like spinal taps done. I started taking this awful medication for a long period of time. And for like 2 or 3 years after that, I had to go and see a neurologist like every couple of months to get checked up. At the moment, it's in remission, so it's all good. I'm looking after my health better now. But that happened. You would think that that would have been enough of a wake up call for me, but no, I carried on working too hard. I wanted my business to succeed. Like 16-hour days were nothing to me. I completely gave up my social life. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't sleeping. I was just living to go, 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 work, work, work. And I was like, I can, it's not a brain tumor. I'm fine. So then I got ill again, which is what usually happens: chest infection, bad throat. And I was lying on the sofa in my house. This must have been maybe 12 months after this whole brain thing. And my husband, now he was my partner at the time, came home and he could hear me wheezing outside of the house before he even opened the front door. And he was like, "You're not right. We need to go to the hospital." So I went back to the hospital and was told I had sudden onset adult asthma, which apparently is really rare, and ended up spending 3 weeks in the hospital, like on a crazy
Oh my
ventilator. So I've had more issues like this, but I've been in this cycle, Nicola, where it's all about the overachieving, going hard, pushing myself. The last time I had a serious burnout was probably that happened in like 2015. I remember being at a conference in San Diego, and I had booked like 12 people to do photo shoots for, and I'd obviously spent all that money going to San Diego, going to this particular conference. And again, the throat happened, sore throat on the plane. By the time I got to America through the long haul flight, I had tonsillitis and laryngitis and had to go and spend hundreds of dollars to get instant medication from a doctor there. And I carried on, I worked through. And at the time, I was like, well, this is what it takes. That whole hustle culture. I was really beholden to just push through. This is what it takes. You've got to do this to succeed. And every one of those instances has probably taught me a little bit of a lesson. But when you put it together in a cumulative way, it's like, what the hell are you doing, Laura? Like, you signed up to be this entrepreneur for this lifestyle of freedom where you dictate what you're doing. And actually, it's given me some long-term life conditions that I'll be dealing with now forever. And it taught me that I'd need to prioritize my health and my happiness over business. So I've kind of given you a potted history of the highlight reel there of the medical side. In terms of where I am now, I'm very much about prioritizing time out. Like we were talking before, I'm looking after my health in lots of different ways. But I think it's really important that more of us, especially more women, talk about the battle scars. I don't mean to like glorify it, but I think a lot of people are out there who are in an entrepreneurship situation, especially who've gone through all of these horrendous things and haven't said anything because they didn't want to seem like a whinging, like soft touch woman. And the more women I talk
Yeah.
to about this sort of thing, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've been through that. This happened to me, and I just carries on. I didn't even want to tell anyone." Like, I'm not talking about like oversharing on social media, but having your support network and actually saying like it's okay for me to take 2 months off if I'm seriously ill. Like that should be one of the huge benefits of having a business. You're in control.
Yeah, and I mean, from my perspective, with a long background in corporate, I stuck in one job for 20 years, but that was probably just as damaging as being in multiple jobs like
Yes.
you were in a short space of time. I hid how I felt, and I certainly didn't share the burnout and breakdowns that I had with anyone, even really friends, because I was so embarrassed. And I think there's just this whole stigma around health when it's something that potentially is lifestyle related, or is
Yeah.
something mental health that may mean that you worry you're being judged for not being good enough. There was definitely that element with me. It's like, well, if I'm not seen as being that strong, capable person who can deliver results and not fall apart, then how am I ever going to stay in this job or get promoted and earn more money? And it's the same with your business, isn't it? You say, I mean, you
Yeah.
have to be healthy,
Absolutely, it
otherwise you
is.
don't have a business.
And
Yeah. And
it is.
yeah.
I love what you're saying there about mental health. Like, I've had instances where something's gone wrong in my business. Like, there was one situation not long after I got ill, in that San Diego trip where this big collaboration fell through, cost me a lot of money, like tens of thousands of pounds, and it gave me such a knock mentally that I needed to take the time out. But it was that was the final straw. So I definitely think you're right there. It's the stigma, and it's admitting like I've failed when really you haven't. Like you've just been dealt like a really rough hand, and you need to do what you need to do to cope with it and grow from it instead of letting it get the better of you.
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, it's took you actually several episodes of really severe health problems before you've got to a point of going, okay, I have to take control here and I have to do something about it. And having such a traumatic experience with your brain, and, God, I mean, it doesn't matter what organ it is, we're scared when we think there's something wrong with it, but your brain or your heart is like, oh, hang on, this is
Uh-huh.
severely life
Well, it
threatening
was like
here, isn't it?
they said to me, if this goes untreated, you could end up blind. I was like, well, how the hell am I going to keep a living if you can't be a blind photographer? When
Yeah.
I was doing just the photography, there's something very beautiful and poetic in that. But at the time, I absolutely did not see it that way.
So tell me a bit then about how you've evolved through all of those experiences, from just brushing it under the carpet and being like, no, hustle, keep going, make it happen, just keep like moving forward at any cost. What's been the biggest change to you to now be prioritizing your health?
That's a really good question. I think prioritizing my health, prioritizing my family, prioritizing my relationship with my husband, all of those things have taken second fiddle to me running a business. And I think the big things for me were lockdown and hitting the 10-year of trading mark, where I thought, right, where are the priorities here, and why did you decide to do this? And look at the things that you've sacrificed by saying yes to the business, because every time you say yes to something, you say no to other things. It was take like that 2020 lockdown where I think all of us took stock about everything, like on such a deep introspective level. And I remember being out for the daily walk that we did to get out the house, and me and my husband talking about it, and I was like, yeah, we're nearly at the 10-year mark here. And he was like, yeah, do you think you've achieved what you need to achieve? Like, saying it in a really beautiful, non-judgmental way, because he's great like that. And I was like, yeah, I actually don't know that I have achieved what I needed to here. And actually, I think that's okay. Like, that was a huge turnaround for me. I'm not admitting defeat. I'm just saying, actually, prioritizing it that way doesn't work for me. So thinking, right, what can I do to change these things? Now, when I had one of my mental health blips in 2018 with the collaboration that fell apart, I actually sought out talk therapy. I'm quite open to say I've got anxiety and depression, and at different points in my adult life, I've taken medication and not taken medication. I've tried CBT therapy. I do, fitness, yoga, exploring different things. But that particular episode was very bad for me, and I knew because of my prior experience that I needed to sit down and talk with someone. Now, part of that, if you're not familiar with how talk therapy works, the therapist I was working with knew that I loved visual things because of the way that my brain works. And we kind of mapped out my behavioral patterns in a very beautiful drawing. And it was all about creating, it was almost like gamifying my own brain. So it was like, what are the non-negotiable, like foundational building blocks that you need to have in place to feel in control, to feel like you're winning at the game of life, to trick my competitive nature, and to feel like you're doing a good job to appeal to your perfectionism. So I've got lots of tiny little things, Nicola, that I do over my week. And it's okay if I play the game and I don't hit all of them. Like, I'm not an abject failure if I don't get 100%. It's not about that. What it's more about is, right, if we're slipping and we're only at like 40% of these silly little things that you do every day, and that goes on for a couple of weeks, the alarm bell should start now. Don't keep going to the point of burnout and serious illness, which will probably happen like a month later when you're doing nothing. So they're little tiny things. Like, I love reading my angel tarot cards every day. That gives me like a little cute smile. I like to have at least 2 bubble baths every week with like essential oils, salt, bubble bath, glass of wine, like full beans bubble bath. I like to always do my nails myself. I like to give myself a manicure. Like, that's a little bit of like glam self-care. What else? I take a series of different supplements that I'm currently reviewing with this intermittent fasting, taking different ones at different times, but doing supplements. I have an uber healthy breakfast. So usually in the summer, that's like an over the top healthy smoothie with all sorts of magic potions and powders in. And then when we get to the winter months, I like to change that out, and I have like an ultimate porridge with like nuts, seeds, everything in there, and a few little pills and potions in there. Lots of little tiny things like that. Getting outside and walking around physically at least once a week does me the power of good. Like, if I can get out into the countryside and do a good hour hike, that's brilliant. But if it's actually put a podcast on and walk around the block a couple of times, that still has the same sort of impact on me. So all of those little things, it's perfect if you can do them in a week. But let's face it, like we were just saying before we started recording, it's been one of those crazy weeks, and we're starting to get into that crazy build up of Christmas. There's very little chance I'm hitting all of them every week for the next 2 months, but I need to have like over half, or aiming it, or just like checking in with myself and going, hang on a minute, do we maybe need to prioritize this?
I love this. And when we spoke initially a few weeks ago, there's 2 things that you said, and you've just gone through them now, that I really want to kind of come back to and just bring people's attention to. One is,
Sure.
you've got clear about the building blocks that create the foundation for you. And because you're clear on those blocks, you are able to pick up when it's starting to crumble, should we say, if we use that visual analogy of a
That's a
foundation
great
for a house,
visual.
say,
Yes. Yeah.
and so you've got those solid foundations, because you can't build upwards with the bricks and the rooms and put the roof on and live in it if your foundations are not strong. And you've really tapped into what you're about. And I always emphasize this in my kind of guiding values and principles with what I do. Yes, there are foundational things with nutrition and movement and sleep and stress and your mindset. But what they look like for you and what they look like for me can differ, and there's guidance there, obviously having lots of fruit and vegetables and fresh air and some things that are going to be common, but the way you do that and how that
Yes.
becomes a part of your life is for you. So you've got clear on that, and so now, and this is what's really key, you're able to pick up when those blocks are starting to crumble a bit and, like, actually maybe I need a little bit more of this or I need a bit more of that. And then the second thing was that you've said it's all of those little things that come together to create the solid foundation. And again, this is so key because so many people, women especially, focus just on what they eat, and they're not usually focusing on that from how it's making them feel in an overall health perspective, but probably in the way that they look more than anything else. And it's not just about that, as you said right at the start with the intermittent fasting, it's what that does across your whole mental and physical health, with the sleep, the focus, your energy, your creativeness, how you're feeling, when you are eating, and so on. So yeah, I love both of those things. And with the building blocks, was that something talk therapy helped, like, for you to find what you're about and what works for you?
Yeah, like I remember him saying, like, so what are the non-negotiables? And I'm like, what you talking about? Like, I'm a workaholic, like everything's negotiable. Like, I'm an entrepreneur, like let's cut a deal. It took me a long time to figure out, oh right, so me prioritizing that I should take these supplements instead of those supplements, and actually breakfast, whenever I have it, is really important. I was like, oh, so that can be a block. Like, I remember feeling really stupid saying, well, it always makes us feel lush when I have a bubble bath. And he's like, there you go, there's a bill. I'm like, oh right, okay.
Yeah.
So the minute that penny dropped, and I was like, right, I can actually style this out now. I can start getting really creative. Like in the summer, I'm cutting the lawn and listening to a podcast. Like because of my moniker, like getting the perfect lines in the grass, like all that gives me so much joy. Like it's sick. But like, so in the winter, I'm like, what can I do now? Bake Off just started here in the UK. So every week I'm trying to learn how to bake a new cake, but like doing it in like a lovely chill, like if this doesn't work, it doesn't matter. And just feeling like in the moment, like I'm now
Mm-hmm.
sifting flour, and like just feel that. And then, okay, when I wait, like doing something that's creative, but not making money to be creative, that really is something that I found has helped me to unlock what are my blocks. So I think that's probably, if someone was listening to this and they're like, oh God, well, what are my blocks? What are me foundational blocks, not blocks in life? It's thinking about what are the silly little things that bring you so much pleasure and joy. And you're totally right, Nicola. It's different from every person to every person, because people get joy out of so many different things in life. And that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Yeah, and those things that bring you joy do contribute to your health. It's this is what I'm trying to get people to have a penny drop moment about, that it's not just those, typical tangible type things like going to the gym and, having a salad or whatever it might be. There's so many things that contribute to how healthy you are. Your mind is the biggest one, the way you think, the way you talk to yourself, what you say and don't say to yourself, how you say it, all of that. And, again, Laura, I just love what you're saying about, like, you're a creative person, and so you know how important a role that is in your well-being, and you're finding these new ways through baking, through, when you've designed your map of who you are and how you feel and live and so on, and just all of them different ways are brilliant. And this is what I find when I work with clients, and they come to me and they often have, very specific goals of, I want to lose weight, or I want to feel, less exhausted, and often burnout and overwhelm are the key things. But then when you get into it, it's so much more micro than that. It's really about these things that make up such a part of who you are, but can very easily be overlooked and missed in the busyness of life. So I know you said the silly little things, and they're not silly little things because they're your values, they make up who you are, don't they? But what has been kind of some of the learnings that you've had about actually creating these new habits for these different things that now are your building blocks?
It's definitely like it's almost like finding how can you play. Like I obviously as a kid, being the creative, I loved imaginary play. Like I was all about like let's pretend this, let's pretend that. Or I was quite adventurous. We grew up in the countryside, climbing trees, falling out of trees, running about in fields, chasing mice, like all that sort of stuff. I think when we grow up, there's this unsaid rule that you've got to be serious. So you can find pleasure, but you can only find pleasure by taking a 2 week holiday in August, and you can only find pleasure from eating a salad, and you can only find pleasure from spending money. Life's way cooler than that. Like I got into doing have you ever heard of simmer bowls? So I'm getting like into a little bit of witchiness in this point in my life. And doing a simmer bowl, like you gather all the smells of the season and you basically throw it in the pot and put it on simmer, and your whole house smells of the season. So I just did one for autumn. So it was like cinnamon, orange, cloves, all this like rose petals, all and you feel like a little witch, like
Oh,
playing spells like you would have as a kid, when we're all trying to make perfume out of the neighbour's flowers. It's like
yeah.
that, but you're having a little, so I'm like, all right, well, we'll give this a go. And yeah, I'll make a little wish when I do it. And then my house smells lush, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is actually really cool. Like it probably cost, like numbers wise, maybe £4. And I'm sitting there with a glass of wine thinking, yeah, this is absolutely brilliant. Like I'm loving
Mm.
this right now. So it's finding the joy in life and treating it like what are we going to play? How am I going to play this weekend? So like I think there's like the mental health, like coloring in. If that's a great way for you to switch your brain off, treat yourself, get the best colored pens you've ever imagined, and get a real good, it's playing, but you don't have to do it in this commerce driven way, or a way that you see as trending on social. It's about finding the weird little things that you have fun doing. Like I used to dance as a kid. I danced like my whole childhood. I've just started an adult tap class, and Nicola, I'm a terrible compared to what I used to be, and my knees are creaking, but I'm jiggling about in the back of the class, absolutely laughing my head off and loving it. And it's again, it's not about mastering, being the best tapper ever. Like it's too late in my life
Mhm.
to do that. Do it for the fun of it. So it's finding the fun and the
Yeah.
pleasure.
And you've touched on something which is so important, the play aspect. And I've heard this talked about in the health and well-being space. And when I worked at Nike, it was something we talked about all of the time because play is sport, it is movement, and it
Yeah.
massively impacts health. And then we hit puberty, and especially for girls at that age, we just stop. It becomes boring, doesn't it? My daughter's 16 and I've seen that with her. They reach 13 and suddenly it's, let's not move at all. Let's
Yeah.
think everything's boring, and we'll lose that, don't we? And this approach is just so empowering because it's easy, it can be free, it's simple, you can do it in so many different ways. I'm laughing because I keep threatening to go back to music lessons because when I was a child, I wouldn't say I was naturally gifted musically, but I was very musical. I could read music, write music. I played the recorder, the cornet, then the euphonium, which are both brass instruments, the glockenspiel.
Wow.
And I loved it, and I've got the recorder in the cupboard here, and I
Do
can pick
it.
it up and
Do it.
play London's Burning from just like childhood memory. And sometimes I randomly do it, and then I just have this big smile and I laugh, and my daughter thinks I'm absolutely crazy. And I did actually record it, and I put it in one of the girls' WhatsApp groups, and everyone was just killing themselves laughing. And I was like, yeah, but it's something that you just forget about. And yet there's so many things that when we were young, like I love to play cards. And every time I go on holiday, even if it's just Kev and I, we play cards. And then every time I'll go, why do we never play cards at home? Why do we only play them when we're staying away somewhere?
Uh-huh.
And it's just like you say, it's those things that probably have like a huge role in who you are as a person, and those memories which are very joyful and happy and exciting and so on from childhood, like tap. I love that you've gone back to tap. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I would love to see you do it.
Give us a few more weeks to brush up, and then
And
I'll be
then
doing the videos. Yeah,
you'll be like
I've
Amanda
wanted.
Holden on the stage.
Watch this space. I've wanted to be in a ska band, right? So I played the saxophone as a kid, as well as dancing. And I wanted to. I started playing the saxophone because I loved Lisa Simpson on The Simpsons, and then I got into ska music. And I've been saying this at conferences. You know, I've been in business now for 11 years. The times I've spoken with people, and I try and have a conversation like, oh, you know, let's not just talk about your business and your conversion rate and all that crap. Tell us, do you play an instrument? I know probably 12 different entrepreneurs, even in the Northeast area. So I feel like we need to invite you into this fictional band that we've been
Can
threatening
I
to
bring me a
create for
recorder?
like the last 6 years. I want to say recorder. I want to say glockenspiel action in the background. Like maybe you're just like a multi-purpose octopus of like music. That would be great.
I know. I'll get back on the cornet and practice.
Yeah.
I think
Uh-huh. We
all
still
when the
don't have
saints
a
come
lead
marching.
singer.
Oh, definitely can't sing. Definitely.
Yeah. So if
That
anyone's
that's lovely.
listening, yeah, we need a lead singer. If there's anyone who's like a secret squirrel and actually they're now an
Yeah.
entrepreneur or they're in the wellness world and they want to
Mm.
sing, we need a
Mm.
singer.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. And you know, the thing is, like, so many people pick up habits or hobbies like this when they reach retirement age, you know, and say, oh, I'm going to go back to acting or maybe writing. You know, I always loved writing as well. And I think, oh, one day. And then, you know, you're much older and you've got so much less life ahead of you. Whereas at this age, and I think that's for me been one of the massive shifts in my life since I was made redundant. And I think in hearing your story and journey from what's happened with your health, do you know, where you grab hold of it and go, oh my God, life's too short, you know, let's do it now, because otherwise
Yeah.
it's probably going to be never. And I want to have as much joy as I can. And when you have experienced something that puts your health at risk and your happiness at risk, it gives you that wake up call, doesn't it? And you have your penny drop moment that I talk about, where you go, oh, whoa, life's fragile, life
Yeah.
can be
What am I
short and
doing?
change
Yeah,
like that. Yeah. So I
exactly.
love this play element. It's been amazing talking about that. And yeah, you've given me a bit of inspiration and I've got a big smile. And that's what it does, this kind of stuff. And it's so impactful. And most of us need a way to switch off. You know, things like this are very
Oh,
mindful,
honestly,
because
when
when you're in
I'm
the
in that
moment,
tap class,
yeah,
when I'm in
you're
that
only in the
tap class,
top.
you 100%, I'm looking at the dance teacher's feet and thinking, right, how do I
Mhm.
do that in my body? Like you have no capacity to think of anything else. And oh my God, it's like peace and quiet and tranquility.
Mhm.
Like in the moment, you're like, okay, toe, heel, heel, shuffle, shuffle. But that's all, it's like meditation. That is all you're
Yeah,
thinking about.
you're
And you
just
really
there,
are
aren't
present
you?
in the now, like you say. So it would be
Mm.
the same with instruments or any other kind of pursuit. I imagine if you do a highly what's the word I'm looking for? Like a strategic game like tennis, for instance, where you're having to like play the chess part of it as well as the
Mhm.
physical, it would be the same effect.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a kind of where I would end, with a tip around building a habit for yourself that is playful, that brings the fun in, that puts you into that flow state, you know, whether it's cooking, you know, as you said, mentioned colouring, there's different crafts, there's music, there's physical play, there's chess you mentioned. My daughter keeps going on about learning to play chess. I used to play chess when I was a kid, cards, all these things. So yeah, lots of ideas there. And as Laura's shared, they can be very, very impactful when it comes together with all of the other pieces to build that solid foundation. So if anyone would like to connect with Laura, I'll pop everything into the show notes, but just let people know where you hang out, how they can find out a bit more about what you do if they're interested.
So my home on the internet is laurapearman.com, and you can see everything that I do from my business. If you want to see me in action, I would recommend you come and check out my YouTube channel, which is Mwah TV. Again, we'll put a link to that. And that's where I try and bring in a little bit of my vintage vibe mixed with like British telly humor with educating people on creativity, brand strategy, brand photography. So that's where you'll
Oh.
see me at my best.
Oh, brilliant. Sounds fantastic. So it's been amazing chatting, and it's certainly lightened my day and really brought a big smile to my face. And I really appreciate you sharing your story and journey and where you are now, because it's great to see such a change and shift in how you're feeling.
Thank you so much, Nicola. It's been a pleasure having a chat with you, as always.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Laura.